Welcome back, everyone, to today's Explainer. If you're deep into the aquarium hobby, you already know the intense dedication it takes to build a thriving underwater ecosystem. Today, we're talking about the high-stakes reality of adding new life to your beautifully established tank. Seriously, it's one of the most exciting parts of the whole hobby, right? Breathing home that stunning new fish or that vibrant piece of coral. But without the right precautions, it's also literally the easiest way to bring absolute disaster into a delicate system. The source material we're digging into today explores the absolutely crucial practice of quarantine, why it's your ultimate defensive shield, and exactly how to do it right. So I want you to ask yourself a pretty provocative question. Is your newest aquarium addition actually a Trojan horse? Now, I know that sounds a little dramatic, but really think about it. You see a perfectly healthy-looking fish swimming around at the local shop, or maybe a flawlessly bright coral frag. But the reality of a closed marine ecosystem is that this gorgeous new addition could be harboring some microscopic chaos. Things like disease, parasites, and pests are incredibly good at hiding in plain sight. And the really tricky part is that it can take days or even weeks for these hidden hitchhikers to reveal themselves. So if you drop them straight into your main tank, you aren't just adding a new fish. You might actually be unleashing an invisible invasion. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today's defensive playbook. First, we're looking at the Trojan horse threat. Second, defending the display tank. Third, the power of observation. And finally, practical quarantine basics. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the Trojan horse threat, and those hidden dangers hiding in plain sight. Look, I totally get it. It's so incredibly tempting to just float the bag, tempt acclimate, and release that new fish right into your tank. But our source material gives us a pretty vital warning here. Newly purchased livestock can appear healthy at first. However, symptoms may take days to weeks to become obvious. This really hits on the core of the threat. Think about the journey that animal has been on, from the ocean to a wholesaler to a retail tank and finally to your house. It's been exposed to countless invisible pathogens and parasites that can easily hitch a ride unnoticed. And they definitely don't announce themselves right away. During that critical delay, while a pathogen is just incubating, it's still spreading. And if that spreading happens in your main tank, well, it's already too late. Which brings us right to Section 2, defending the display tank and protecting your masterpiece. So the crucial point here is that your main aquarium is never just a box of water, is it? It's a carefully crafted masterpiece that relies on absolute stability. On one hand, new arrivals represent the chaotic unknown. They bring potential hidden pathogens, unknown stress levels, and microscopic irritants. But on the other hand, your display tank represents months, maybe even years, of hard-earned stability. We're talking about dialed-in, consistent salinity, perfect temperature, balanced water chemistry, and a thriving biological filter. When a disease outbreak hits that established main tank, trying to treat it without totally disrupting or even killing the existing inhabitants is a complete nightmare. And that brings us to the definition of our absolute best tool. The text frames quarantine as a controlled buffer between the display tank and new arrivals to lower the odds of hitchhiking disease, parasites, or pests. So instead of looking at it as some frustrating delay, we really need to view it as the ultimate first line of defense. It's like a fortress wall that prevents a wildly expensive and emotionally draining cascade of problems from wiping out the masterpiece you've worked so incredibly hard to build. Oh, and this definitely isn't just about fish. Corals and invertebrates carry hitchhikers too. The source material points out that while a piece of coral obviously doesn't swim around, it can absolutely introduce aggressive competitors, pests, nuisance algae, and microscopic organisms that will seriously irritate your existing reef community. Having a quarantine window gives you a highly practical chance to verify that those stunning new coral pieces are stable and totally free of any obvious threats before you go and glue them into your main aquascape. Moving on to Section 3, the power of observation and how to become a reef detective. Now, what's really interesting about this phase is that by using a separate controlled tank, you basically turn into an active reef detective. You aren't just storing the animal, you're isolating it to get a crystal clear window into its health, behavior, and feeding habits. Once that initial transport stress fades, there are some very specific warning signs you need to monitor. For fish, you're watching closely for rapid breathing, clamped fins, mysterious spots, lethargy, or just a stubborn refusal to eat. For your new corals, keep a keen eye out for unusual tissue recession, persistent polyp retraction, or signs they just aren't adapting well to the lighting and flow. These are subtle clues that might get completely lost in a massive, busy display tank, but in a small quarantine setup, they become glaringly obvious. The real beauty of spotting these signs in isolation is that it gives you the power to react safely. If an animal is struggling, a separate kink lets you proactively adjust the conditions. You can quickly improve water quality, refine your acclimation process, or, and this is a big one, you can use targeted, strong medical treatments. If you had to use those exact same treatments in your main display, they could easily crash your biological filter or wipe out your sensitive invertebrates. Basically, isolation gives you the freedom to cure the patient without burning down the hospital.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 4, Practical Quarantine Basics, which is essentially your defensive playbook.
So, how do we actually execute all of this? Thankfully, it's a super straightforward practical process that anyone can master. Here is the concrete 4-step playbook. Step 1. Separate your new arrivals immediately into a dedicated quarantine tank equipped with its own proper filtration and aeration to keep things stable. Step 2. Observe carefully over a set period of time for all those common issues we just talked about. Step 3, and honestly, this is absolutely critical, prevent cross-contamination. You have to maintain strict hygiene here. Use completely separate nets, separate cleaning tools, and meticulously wash your hands and equipment between tanks. Seriously, a single drop of shared water can ruin the whole process. And finally, step 4, once the observation period is completely clear, acclimate your livestock carefully into the display tank, making sure to be extra gentle with those sensitive corals. Now, we do need to be realistic here. The source material rightly points out that quarantine does not guarantee absolute zero risk. Nothing in biology ever does, right? But by adding these 3 powerful factors, time, isolation, and monitoring, you drastically tilt the odds of prevention in your favor. For anyone who already has a thriving tank, the relatively small effort of setting up a quarantine system is nothing compared to the immense cost, heartbreak, and sheer panic of trying to treat a fully stocked display tank. And this brilliantly illustrates our final takeaway today. Quarantine respects the harsh reality of closed ecosystems. Once a pathogen or pest gets fully established, removing it is incredibly challenging, highly disruptive, and sometimes, well, practically impossible. By deliberately slowing down your introductions and actually utilizing that observation window, you're actively protecting the health of your fish, the resilience of your corals, and the long-term stability of the entire aquarium. In a closed ecosystem, prevention is always cheaper than the cure. So I'll leave you with this one final thought. Will you protect your reef?